Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here today. It is officially the end of March, so it is time to talk about all the books that I read this month. I can't believe that it's going to be April. Time is flying. I am so excited for spring, so excited for so many things, and I am also excited to tell you guys about these books that I read this month. I read some wonderful books. I don't think there's really any book here that I didn't enjoy, so without further delay, let's just start talking about them. The first book that I read this month I actually just talked to you guys about in my last video where I talked about the books that have made me cry, or the top 10 books that have made me cry, because this book and this story always makes me cry, but it's a new version of it, and that is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by Carolyn Marie, but this is the animated story version because it was turned into, the original book was turned into a short film by the same writer and creator and his team of artists, and so this is the animated version, which it was turned into a short film. They just took stills from the short film and they just turned it into like a book version, which is so great. And this story is a bit more of a fluid narrative where our main character is looking for home. The little boy, he's looking for home, and on his way of searching for home, he runs into a mole, a fox, and a horse, and it's their journey of coming together and found family, and it's just such a beautiful story, and it always leaves me weeping, and I just love it so much, so this was an absolute joy. Carolyn Marie also just won an Oscar for the animated short film because it won Best Animated Short at the Oscars, and I just thought that that was so incredible, and I love this story, so I highly recommend it if you haven't checked it out yourself. It is just so sweet. The next book I read I unfortunately don't have a physical copy of because I listened to the audiobook, and that is Big Magic: Creative Living Beyond Fear by Elizabeth Gilbert, and I really loved this book. It's a nonfiction from the writer of Eat, Pray, Love, if you guys have heard of that book. She wrote this nonfiction book about living a creative life and the hard parts of that, the trials and tribulations of being a creative person, the self-doubt, the whole process of creating something and the act of creation and the act of living a creative life. She had so many incredible points and topics that she brought up, and a lot of the things that she spoke about really resonated with me because I agreed with a lot of what she said in terms of self-doubt and finding a story at the right time and then letting certain stories go if it's not the right time, and just pursuing your passion and pursuing your dream in a world where it is becoming more easy to live a creative life, but I always feel like there is so much internal struggle with being a creative person, and especially self-doubt. I deal with it literally every single day, and feeling like it is just so hard sometimes, but it is the thing that you were meant to do and that you can't not do this thing. But even though you feel that way and you feel like you were born to do this thing, it also feels incredibly difficult, and am I good enough? Am I able to do the thing that I want to do and make it a reality? And she just spoke about so many topics that really hit home. So if you are a creative person as well, or if you are an aspiring writer, even if you're not an aspiring writer, even if you just like to read books, I think that the points that she made, and I always find it interesting to hear about the perspective of other writers. Even if you're not a writer though, even if you're just a reader, I feel like it could be a really interesting insight into the act of creation and the act of creating a book. So I loved it. I highly recommend it. Elizabeth Gilbert does narrate the audiobook herself, which I think is so nice. You guys know how much I love when audiobooks are narrated by the writer, because I know that obviously they can be portrayed in the way that they wanted and intended because they're reading their own words. So I always think that just creates a wonderful reading experience. So yes, I loved Big Magic, and I think it was just a fantastic book and one that I will most likely be returning to. The next book I also listened to on audiobook, and it's also narrated by the author, and that is Time is a Mother by Ocean Vuong, which is a poetry collection. I listened to On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, which is Ocean Vuong's novel, poetic novel, and I love his voice, I love his narrations, and so when I saw that his poetry collection Time is a Mother was available on audiobook, I used the app Libby, which is free through my library, and I highly recommend it. It's a fantastic app. app. And so when I saw that it was available, I really wanted to listen to it because I've been in the mood to listen to and read poetry lately, which I do have another poetry collection that I'm excited to tell you guys about. But yeah, I loved it. I find it really difficult to rate poetry and to talk about poetry because it's so personal, and I think what Ocean Vuong does so beautifully is his writing is incredibly intimate and is incredibly personal, and you could just feel that in every single word. And the way that he narrates it, his voice is just so beautiful and deep, and you could feel the emotion that he has in, he just saturates every word in emotion, and I love it so much. Even though I feel like some of the poems I couldn't really relate to or understand completely, because obviously you can't understand every situation that a person has gone through, especially because he and I had very different childhoods and very different lives, but still I think it's so wonderful to read about people's different perspectives and get a better understanding of that just as an outside perspective, and I think that it was just beautifully done, and he expressed himself gorgeously, and he is just a fantastic poet. So if you are looking for some poetry and you want to try some new things, I highly recommend trying Ocean Vuong's poetry. His words and poetic voice are so mesmerizing and just an absolute joy to witness. The next books I didn't actually include on my Goodreads because they're picture books, and sometimes I feel like I don't care, I will put a picture book on my Goodreads and just use it towards my Goodreads goal, but I also just feel like I want to track and remember when I read certain books, so I might add it to my Goodreads and just say, oh well, I'm counting a children's book towards my Goodreads. But yeah, let me know what you think about that. Do you guys count children's books if you read them? For me, because I am a children's and just general illustrator and writer, I read a lot of children's books for my own research and for my own enjoyment and inspiration, and so the two children's books that I bought recently, which will be featured in an upcoming video, so I don't want to talk about them too much, but the first one is The Mysteries of Harris Burdick by Chris Van Allsburg. Now, Chris Van Allsburg, he created this book, but he didn't actually draw the illustrations or the words in the book, which sounds kind of contradictory. There is a really interesting story behind this book. Do I wait to tell you about it in the upcoming video? I think I might. If you are interested to hear the mystery behind this book, then I will be having a video coming soon featuring some illustrated books, so just a little hint at what video it will be. But yes, I did read this and I loved it. Chris Van Allsburg, he illustrated and wrote The Polar Express, which is probably his most famous book, also Jumanji, and a bunch of other incredible picture books. He is one of my favorite author illustrators, and I have loved his illustrations ever since I was a kid, and it's always a joy to get back into his worlds and to see more of his illustrations. But yes, this actually isn't one of his illustrations though, but it's a very interesting story. But yes, I do love Chris Van Allsburg, and I really enjoyed this book, so I'm excited to tell you guys about it in that upcoming video. The next book is another beautiful, stunning work of art. This book is just brilliant, and that is The Fantastic Flying Books of Mr. Morris Lesmore, and this is by William Joyce. There's a sticker that says, "The story that inspired the Academy Award-winning short film." So again, we have another Academy Award-winning short film story, and this is just an absolutely stunning book. Oh my gosh, I read it, I fell in love with it. I don't want to tell you too much about it because I do want to save it for the upcoming video, but this is a book perfect for any book lover, or perfect for anyone who wants to spread the joy of reading to the children in their lives. This is just a beautiful picture book. The illustrations are gorgeous. Oh my gosh, absolutely gorgeous. And I believe the story is by William Joyce, and he illustrated parts of it, and there was also another illustrator that worked on this as well. Yes, the back flap does say William Joyce and Joe Bloom, so I do believe Joe Bloom also illustrated parts of this book as well, but it is gorgeous. I loved it. I think it's amazing, and I can't wait to talk to you about it in that upcoming video. The next book that I read is another favorite. It's from one of my favorite writers, and that is the third book in the series of Unfortunate Events books. This is the series of Unfortunate Events, The Wide Window, which is book 3 by Lemony Snicket. I also listened to this on audiobook because this month I had a very big Etsy drop and I was doing a lot of order wrapping and a lot of things at my computer, and I didn't have a lot of time to physically read, so I read or listened to a ton of audiobooks while I did all of my computer Etsy work, and that is how I get a lot of my reading done, to be completely honest, as you can tell, because all of these books I feel like I listened to and didn't actually read them, but I love listening to books. This one is also narrated by Lemony Snicket, or his literary representative, Daniel Handler. But I love Lemony Snicket. I love Daniel Handler. His writing always cracks me up. It always makes me laugh so hard. And what I love about the series Unfortunate Events books is that they are so gloomy and harrowing and just so devastating, but hilarious at the same exact time. They are... So Lemony Snicket, or Daniel Handler's whole idea and concept behind the series is that he wanted to create the essence of a gothic novel, or he wanted to write a gothic novel, but kind of turn it on its head and make it about children, and also about just their, not demise, but I guess just terrible things happening to children over and over and over again. But he does in a way that it's so entertaining and funny, and you feel so horrible for these characters because so many terrible things are happening to them. But it's just so funny the way that he does it and the way that he writes. I also love the illustrations in these books as well. They are illustrated by Brett Hellquist. I just want to read you the beginning of chapter 1, just to give you guys an idea of how it reads and how funny it can be, even though it's devastating. So chapter 1 begins, "If you didn't know much about the Baudelaire orphans and you saw them sitting on their suitcases at Damocles Dock, you might think that they were bound for an exciting adventure. After all, the 3 children had just disembarked from the fickle ferry which had driven them across Lake Lachrymose to live with their Aunt Josephine, and in most cases such a situation would lead to thrillingly good times. But of course you would be dead wrong. For although Violet Klaus and Sunny Baudelaire were about to experience events that would be both exciting and memorable, they would not be exciting and memorable like having your fortune told or going to a rodeo. Their adventure would be exciting and memorable like being chased by a werewolf through a field of thorny bushes at midnight with nobody around to help you. If you are interested in reading a story filled with thrillingly good times, I am sorry to inform you that you are most certainly reading the wrong book, because the Baudelaires experience very few good times over the course of their gloomy and miserable lives. It is a terrible thing, their misfortune, so terrible that I can scarcely bring myself to write about it. So if you do not want to read a story of tragedy and sadness, this is your very last chance to put this book down, because the misery of the Baudelaire orphans begins in the next paragraph." And then the story begins. I just think that that's such a fantastic way to introduce a story and to just write. I think that he's brilliant. This is the 3rd book in the series. If you have not read the series of Unfortunate Events books, I highly recommend you do. I actually grew up watching the movie adaptation, which had Jim Carrey in it, and I had only started reading the books last year for the first time, which I am just devastated by because I feel like my younger self would have loved these books. But my adult self also loves these books now, so better late than never, as they say. This is the last book that I read in March, and then the other 3 books that I have to tell you about I'm still currently reading, but the last book that I finished is Together by Luke Adam Hawker. Now, Luke Adam Hawker is one of my favorite contemporary artists and illustrators at the moment. He is a fantastic, fantastic pen and ink illustrator. He mainly works in pen and ink. I don't think I've ever seen him use any other medium except maybe graphite. There's a fuzz in the air. Okay, I think I got it. This is a book that talks about a storm coming and how people respond to this storm, and it is a symbol of the COVID pandemic, and this is all about We're following a main character of this older man and his dog, and it's talking about the oncoming storm, how the storm affects the people, and then how it brings everyone together in a way, and how tragedy can bring people together. I thought that it was fantastically done. His illustrations are gorgeous. I love his work. I love following him on Instagram. His artwork is just stunning and always leaves me completely baffled, because what he can do with such delicate line and his detail and his cross-hatching and just his line work is incredible. But the back says, "Dark clouds were looming in the distance. We watched them gather and we wondered, when will it come? How long will it last?" And it also says, "A monumental storm brings huge and sudden change. We follow a man and his dog through the uncertainty that it brings to their lives. Through their eyes, we see the difficulties of being apart, the roller coaster of emotions that we can all relate to, and the realization that by pulling together, we can move through difficult times with new perspective, hope, and an appreciation of what matters most in life." And it's, yes, all kind of centered around this storm that is, you know, like I said, a symbol of the COVID pandemic. And I thought it was beautifully done. So the illustrations are gorgeous. This paper is also extremely thick. See? It's just standing right up. It's so thick. So it's a beautifully made book. I especially love this one. Just the detail in the man's face. A little fun fact about this book is that the main character of the old man is actually the illustrator's grandfather, his late grandfather, who he used as his source of inspiration in his main character. And then the dog is actually Luke Adam Hawker's dog Robin. And I know that because he actually uploads videos on YouTube, but he also talks about it on his Instagram, and he uploads reels on his Instagram where he speaks about his process and everything, and you can always see pictures of his dog Robin, and so it's so nice to get that insight and to know that, and I just love hearing the creative process and appreciating the creative process behind how stories come together, and to know that, like, that's the author's dog and that's the author's late grandfather, and how you can use the sources of inspiration in your life to imbue them and put them into your stories. And that, I just feel like that togetherness really is so beautiful to witness, and it's just an absolutely stunning book. I love his work, and it was a joy to read. He just came out with a new book called The Last Tree, and it's not available in the US until July, so I'm going to have to unfortunately wait for that unless I want to order it from the UK, but I'm excited to read his newest book as well. Now we are on to the books that I am currently reading. This next book I have been listening to for the entire month because it is for the Game of Tomes book club, and that is David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. I am so close to being done. I am on chapter 55, which is The Tempest, and it is page 878 out of 982. Wow. I am so close. I'm so close. I have been enjoying this book. I really have been enjoying this book. But there's something that I'm not completely loving about it, and I have no idea why, and it breaks my heart to say that because I know that this is many people's favorite Dickens, and I am really enjoying it. And there are so many aspects of this story that I love. Dickens' writing is incredible, but there's something that I'm just not connecting to, and it's making me kind of upset, honestly, because I was really hoping to just absolutely adore this book and it to be a new favorite Dickens. And although I am enjoying it, I promise, there's just something about it, I don't know. I am listening to it on audiobook, and I am listening to the narration that is read by Richard Armitage, and he is a fantastic actor and narrator, and I'm loving his narration. So it's not the fact that I'm listening to it on audiobook, because a lot of my listening was done while wrapping your Etsy orders, because I would not have been able to finish this book in time if I physically read it. I am just reading very little, physically reading very little recently just because I'm so busy with work, but I'm loving the narration, so it's not the fact that I'm listening to it as an audiobook, but I I don't know. I don't know. So hopefully I'll be able to come up with some thoughts and figure out how I feel in time for the live show at the end of April after we read The Catcher in the Rye, which I'm very excited about. I also haven't been filming for a vlog for this video because it's just been me wrapping your Etsy orders, listening to it on audiobook, and kind of sitting there like, I'm enjoying this, but I'm not loving it. And I have no idea why. So I don't know really what to say. I definitely want to film a vlog for reading The Catcher in the Rye, so hopefully I can share some thoughts about David Copperfield in that vlog. Who knows? Who knows? Things have been very busy. I apologize, but yes. I'm sorry if this is your favorite book. I'm really enjoying it, I swear. I swear! The next book is another little poetry collection, and that is from Fernando Pasoa. This is I Have More Souls Than One. This is part of the Penguin Modern Classics, the Penguin Little Modern Classics. It is number 19, and this was actually given to me by one of you guys, Leandro, so thank you so much. He also included a postcard where he wrote, "This is my village, my hometown in Portugal," which is so beautiful. It's such a beautiful photograph. Your village and hometown is lovely. So thank you so much for sending this to me. I believe you sent this quite a while ago, and it's taken me a little while to finally read it, but I have been wanting to read Pasoa's work for so long. I do have the Book of Disquiet, which I know is so many people's favorite books. I really want to physically read that myself, so I don't know when I'm going to get to it, but hopefully soon. But I was really in the mood to read some Pasoa, so I remembered that I had this very short collection, and I thought I can handle this. Maybe not a whole novel right now, but I can handle a short poetry collection. So I am not very far into this. I'm on page 12, but I'm really enjoying it so far. His writing is stunning. Also, let me tell you who the translator is. It is translated by Jonathan Griffin, and it is just an absolutely gorgeous collection of poetry. I'll read you one of my favorite stanzas from the poem, The Keeper of Sheep. I salute all those who may read me, doffing my broad-brimmed hat to them as they see me in my doorway, and the bus barely makes it to the hill crest. I salute them and wish them sun, and rain when rain is needed, and that their houses may have just below an open window a favorite chair, where they may sit reading my verses. And as they read my verses, may they think I am some natural thing, for instance the ancient tree in whose shade, when children, they sat down suddenly, tired of playing, and wiped the sweat from their hot foreheads with the sleeve of their striped smock. It's just, oh, so beautiful. Oh my goodness. Oh, another one that I loved. Okay, it says, "In the cities life is smaller than here at my home upon the crest of this hill. In the city the houses shut the view and lock it, hide the horizon, push our gaze far away from all the sky, make us small because they take away from us what our eyes can give us, and make us poor because our only wealth is to see." That blew me away. I wrote in the margin, "Wow, that's exactly how I felt when living in the city." That was, although I love the city, I think cities are fantastic places no matter what the city is. I do feel such a stronger connection to just being among nature, and I feel like it's nice to have a balance of the city life and the country life, and you appreciate different things about both. I loved going to school in the city because it had so much to offer, but actually living in the city setting was quite hard for exactly those reasons. It was so funny, the things you don't notice until they're gone, like the horizon and the sky and the sun, even though they're there, they're so hard to see when you're in a city, especially New York City, because New York City is just skyscraper on top of skyscraper, and you can only see concrete, really. It really is the concrete jungle. That's not just a cliche. But anyway, this is a fantastic collection, and I'm very excited to keep reading it. So, sorry, I went on a little bit of a tangent there. You know me, I love a good tangent. Then the last book that I am currently reading, guys, I'm finally doing it. I'm finally reading it, and I'm having a great time. I'm reading it very slowly. That is The Winners by my man, Fredrik Backman. He's my favorite contemporary writer, you guys know. I love his writing so much. Being in his words just feels like home. So this is the third book in the Beartown series, one of my favorite book series ever. I can never talk highly enough about his work. I don't want to say too much about what this is about because it is the third book in a series, but I can just tell you I am tabbing it and annotating it and writing all my thoughts and enjoying every minute of it. The emotions that Frederick Bachman captures in his work, it never ceases to amaze me because he can make me cry on one page, laugh on this, like on one page, he can make me cry, laugh, he can make me angry, he can just make me feel every single emotion that I'm capable of feeling all on one page, and I just feel like that is a very rare and beautiful thing to be able to do to a reader, and it just affects people so deeply. So I love this story, I'm loving reading it, and I don't have all too much to say about it yet because I am currently on chapter 27, and I am taking my very, very sweet time with this book. One, because I haven't been doing a lot of physical reading recently because I've been so busy, and number two, because I want this story to last forever. I never really want it to end, so I'm just going to prolong the inevitable and take my very sweet time reading it. So yes, loving it so much, so happy to be finally reading it, and it is making me weep, but in the best way. You guys know how much I love crying at books, so yes, this is doing the job beautifully. So these are all the lovely books that I read in March. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing me talk about them, and if any sound interesting to you, I hope that you found a recommendation here, and I would love to know what books that you read in March or what books you're excited to read in April. I have no clue what I'm going to be reading in April, besides I know that I will be reading The Catcher in the Rye for the book club, but I'm excited. Sometimes I feel like I should make TBRs, and then other times I just sort of like going with the flow and winging it and picking up books just based on my mood, which is what I normally do because I am a mood reader. But yes, let me know if you like making TBRs, if you're more of a mood reader. I'd be interested. I just think it's interesting how we all kind of go about our reading plans. So anyway, I hope you had a fantastic March, have an even better April. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching and for always being so kind and lovely. Your support means the entire world to me, so I am sending you my warmest wishes. I hope you're having a fantastic day or night whenever you're watching this, and I will see you soon in another video. Happy reading.